Yeah, man, we got into the business when we were like, I say 10 and 11 years old. It was like a really gradual process, without throwing your clothes on backwards or whatever. JD, I think he had like one day he had just came through Kris' house or whatever with his pants on backwards and just telling us, check this out, check this style out. And
what's happening, Puff? I'll be back to you if JD ain't had enough. Yeah. Jermaine Dupri, king of the if you ask me, baby.
Duo introduced the trend of wearing pants backwards. Their video would also be a poignant example as to why many other people in the 90s began sporting their clothes backward.
Maybe you can turn around now.
I mean, like, around the neighborhood we would dance and sing a little bit, but I mean, we really got into it a lot when we met Jermaine Dupri, our producer.
Okay.
This is why kids should not be in the music industry. It is alleged that in 1993, Jada Pinkett not only sold weed to Kelly, but also slept with him. Him being 15, her 22.
You think Jada Pinkett was entangling? She was entangling with Kris.
Kris Daddy Mac Smith, one half of the legendary 90s rap duo Kris Kross, is finally speaking out on what really happened to his late friend Kris McDaddy Kelly. And let's just say this is yet another disturbing story about what happens to young stars in this evil industry. For years, rumors have been floating around that Kris Kross were victims of exploitation, manipulation, and being used and abandoned by people like their former mentor Jermaine Dupri Diddy, and even J. Pinkett Smith. But now, those rumors may not just be rumors anymore. Kris and Kris were just 11 and 12 when they got discovered in an Atlanta mall, thrown into the spotlight with a baggy clothes, platinum records, and a global hit like Jump. But behind the fame, the price they paid is truly horrifying now. As for the late Mac Daddy, his passing in 2013 was ruled an OD, but fans are convinced that even if he did OD, he must have been pushed to that point by some trauma from his early career days. And while Jermaine Dupri had denied any wrongdoing, there are now some truly disturbing stories surfacing about his alleged role in Kris Kross's downfall. And then there's Jada Pinkett Smith, who allegedly had a bizarre entanglement with Kris Kelly when he was entirely too young. So what was really going on behind closed doors? Was Mac Daddy's tragic passing the result of some deep trauma from entering the music industry at such a young age? Let's break it down.
These were kids in an adult industry. Even Jermaine Dupri, who played a fatherly role for the boys, was in his early 20s himself. So they were bound to be exposed to something they weren't supposed to eventually.
I can tell you who he smoked his first joint with. I can tell you who he had his first drink with. I can tell you who he's with when he had sex with somebody who put him up to that,
These days, Kris Daddy Mac Smith rarely talks about Kris Kross or his late friend Mac Daddy. And it's completely understandable. The two met in first grade and were like brothers long before fame changed their lives forever. So losing Mac Daddy was a devastating blow, and Daddy Mac had mostly kept his feelings private. However, in a rare recent interview, he finally opened up. And when asked about how he's coping with the loss, he shared that music helps him heal. But he also can't stop thinking about everything they went through as kids in the industry. He said, when we entered into the music business, we had to grow up fast, working, performing at a young age. And while he didn't go into detail, his words reignited interest in those disturbing rumors and allegations surrounding Kris Kross's time in the industry. And now fans are taking a closer look at what really happened behind the scenes and whether these two young stars were victims of industry predators. Kris Kross, Kris Daddy Kelly, and Kris Daddy Mac Smith were only 11 years old when producer Jermaine Dupri discovered them in 1990, and just a year later, these two young stars were on top of the world. With their hit song Jump, that track was everywhere on the radio and music videos, and it dominated the Billboard Hot 100 for 8 straight weeks, and it even went double platinum. But their success didn't stop there. Kris Kross dropped 3 studio albums, all produced by Jermaine Dupri, and each one was a big hit. Their debut album, Totally Crossed Out, went multi-platinum, while their second album went platinum, and their third earned a gold certification. And get this, Michael Jackson personally invited them to be an opening act on his Dangerous tour. Now, there's no doubt that Jermaine Dupri had a real gift for discovering and developing talent, and with his guidance, Kris Kross didn't just become one of the biggest acts of the early 90s. They were also the youngest stars to take over the music scene at the time.
Say hip hop array, and the winner is my posse, Kris Kross.
Hey yo, first of all, we want to thank God for making all this happen. Next, we want to thank our fans, because we wouldn't be here today, for selling 5 million records too.
But there's a darker side to the story. When Chris Kelly tragically passed away from a suspected OD in 2013, some disturbing rumors started swirling. People started speculating that during their rise to fame, Kris Kross may have been taken advantage of, and that MC Daddy's struggles with substance use were his way of coping with some kind of trauma from his childhood in the industry.
No word on a cause of death. The 34-year-old was found unresponsive at his home. Kelly, together with Chris Smith, shot to stardom in 1992 with the song Jump. Track spent 8 weeks on the Billboard Hot 100. The member of Kris Kross were known for wearing their clothes backwards during performances. They also toured with Michael Jackson and even had their own video game. Kelly and Smith were 13 years old when they were discovered in 1991 at an Atlanta mall by producer Jermaine Dupri.
So what really happened to Chris McDaddy Kelly? Was there ever any real proof that he was harmed by shady people in the industry? On April 29, 2013, Chris McDaddy Kelly was found unresponsive at his home in Atlanta. He was rushed to the hospital, but sadly, despite efforts to save him, he passed away 2 days later at just 34 years old. His family later told police that he had struggled with substance use for years, and losing such a talented artist so young deeply affected fans and the music world. Daddy Matt gave an emotional speech at McDaddy's funeral, remembering him as a kind and loyal friend who always looked out for the people around him.
You know, this been like a struggle for me every day. But you know, this morning when I woke up, this peace came over me. 'Cause I know Chris is in heaven with our Heavenly Father. And Donna, I just want to say to you that you've always been like a mother to me. You know it. And I know I can't fill Chris' shoes, but I'm always gonna be here. So I just wanted to say say one thing about Chris. You know, we had too many memories, so I'm not gonna try to go through the 30 years that we kicked it. I just wanted to talk about the last time we was on stage. So right before we go on, right, I'm on the right side, Chris on the left, and it's like seconds before, you know, we're supposed to come on time, right? But Chris runs over to my side, and he say, "Stay focused." So I'm like, "What you doing, man? The curtain's about to come up." But, you know, Chris, he didn't sweat nothing. He wasn't all anxious or nothing. He just slowly walked to his side. And you know, that's the Chris I always knew. He was a true friend, you know? He wanted to see if I was all right, you know what I mean? So I just want to say I love you, man, and I'm gonna miss you dearly. You know, I could say Kris Kross forever, but I know without Chris, my life, it ain't gonna never be the same. But I just hope our legacy for hip hop is never forgotten. But I'm gonna do my part though to make sure Kris' memory live on.
Now, when it comes to Jermaine Dupri, his response to Chris Kelly's passing had people talking. And it didn't take long for some terrifying theories to start making the rounds among fans. Just a day after Chris Kelly's tragic death, Jermaine posted a letter to fans saying that Chris was like the son he never had. Jermaine wrote to the world, Chris Kelly was Mac Daddy. But to me, he was the son I never had. When I think about it, I spent more time with Chris than damn near anybody in my whole life, so you can imagine how bad this hurts. I will always love you, Chris, and I will never let the world forget you. May God bless your soul. But when Jermaine sat down with the Vlad TV in 2018, fans couldn't help but notice that his reaction to questions about Chris Kelly's passing seemed a little off. First off, when Vlad asked him how old Chris was when he died, Jermaine looked unsure and couldn't give the exact age. Fans found this strange, especially since Chris was such a big part of his career, and Jermaine had once said he was like a son to him.
Right, yeah. And then one of the members passes.
No.
Not right after, but years later.
Yeah, years later.
He passes at a relatively young age. Was it 30-something?
Yeah, I think so.
Did you see that coming at all? Were you guys still in contact?
No, I didn't. I mean, I didn't see that coming. We was in I mean, we had just did the 20th anniversary, so it was like, we had just started, having much more dialogue about them going on tour and doing other things after the 20th anniversary.
Yeah, I mean, it was a tragedy.
Yeah, 100%.
It was a tragedy.
Jermaine's bizarre reaction to questions about Chris Kelly set off a wave of gossip and speculation, and fans couldn't get over how weird it was that he didn't know Chris's exact age when he passed, or how nervous he got when asked if they stayed in touch. Naturally, this led to a lot of questions like what was really going on behind the scenes. Why did Jermaine seem so uncomfortable? Now, to be clear, Jermaine's reaction doesn't prove he actually did anything out to the late Chris Kelly. But that didn't stop the rumors from spreading, and people couldn't shake the feeling that there was more to the story than what was being told. Meanwhile, fans started looking deeper into Kris Kross's history, and what they found was disturbing. It seemed like Chris were exposed to some really messed up things in the industry, and Jermaine didn't do much to protect them from it. After Chris Kelly's tragic passing, fans started digging up old Kris Kross interviews from the early 90s, and they noticed that when the duo first blew up, Chris Kelly was outgoing, full of smiles, and radiated confidence in every interview. But a few years later, the difference was shocking. He started appearing in interviews looking completely different, quiet, sad, and like he had the weight of the world on his shoulders. Fans couldn't ignore the drastic change and started wondering what kind of dark experiences had taken such a toll on him.
Schoolmates are still our friends, then the other half of our schoolmates are jealous, and then you have some of your schoolmates that are looking up to you saying that they want to be like you, and they want to start their own group and stuff like that. And will you help me out?
At the time, most people brushed it off, with some claiming Cat was just wild in or under the influence. For years, the media tried hard to paint Cat as unstable, making it easy to dismiss what he was saying about the industry. But now, with all these major industry figures getting exposed for all types of depraved stuff, fans are looking at Cat's comments about Jermaine in a whole different light. Now, we can all agree that what Cat said about Jermaine is one of the worst accusations you can throw at somebody. That's serious defamation, and any public figure would usually be quick to take legal action if the claims weren't true. But here's the thing, Jermaine never addressed Cat's King of PDF Files comment, and keep in mind that this is the same Jermaine who threatened to sue a random fan on Instagram for suggesting he did something to Kris Kross. But when Cat called him out, Jermaine said nothing, and now with the rumors about Jermaine and Kris Kross resurfacing once again, fans are starting to connect the dots to other industry horror stories, like the allegations about Usher's time at Puffy Flavor Camp.
What's happening, Puff? I'll be back to you if JD ain't had enough. Yeah. Jermaine Dupri. king of the files, if you ask me, baby.
On top of that, people are also noticing how Jermaine initially stayed very quiet when Cassie's lawsuit against Diddy dropped. But then when Homeland Security raided Diddy's homes in March, Jermaine actually came out and defended him. Let's rewind to May 2023. Jermaine was hyped to announce that he and Diddy had finally set a date for their epic versus battle. So the battle was supposed to go down in September 2023. But Diddy must have gotten a heads up that Cassie was about to hit him with that lawsuit in November because he suddenly canal. The whole thing. As for Jermaine's response to Diddy's legal drama, at first he stayed low and refused to comment. But then once Diddy's homes got raided and reports asked him about it, Jermaine got super defensive and tried to flip the script by bringing up Donald Trump, almost like he was suggesting Diddy was being unfairly targeted.
It's Michael Jackson.
But to become a star, he had to spend a year with a man he barely knew.
You've changed your name to Love. I have become Love. Okay.
We're sending you over to something called Puffy Flavor Camp.
Did you feel like that took away from your childhood at all?
Flavor Camp was Usher's last chance at having a career.
Giving up is not an option in life. There's always a way.
The allegations are absolutely horrific. Were you the only kid at Puffy Flavor Camp?
Where we hanging out and what we doing, we can't really disclose.
Music mogul Sean Diddy Combs, accused of and assault.
But Usher didn't just survive Flavor Camp. He thrived from.
But hold up, because Jermaine and Diddy aren't the only two industry figures who allegedly preyed on Kris Kross. We also can't forget about the rumored female deviants, either specifically Jada Pinkett Smith. According to multiple insiders, Jada may have taken advantage of Chris Kelly when he was starting out now. We all know Jada's usually quick to clap back at any shade thrown her way. But strangely, she stayed quiet about these serious allegations. Rumors about Jada and young Chris Kelly have been around for a long time, but now they're back in the spotlight thanks to rapper Daz Dillinger, who worked closely with Tupac and produced his legendary album All Eyes on Me. In a recent interview, Daz dropped a bombshell saying that Jada had an entanglement with Chris Kelly back in 1993, and this would have made Chris about 14 or 15 years old while Jada was 21 or 22 at the time.
I want to ask you about everything happening to Diddy. Were you surprised when you heard about the raid?
Yeah, I was surprised about the raid, but I mean, I think that it's a foolish act that nothing happened. So it's like, why? I don't even understand all the commotion. You know?
Yeah, I mean, he's been sued a lot, but we don't know exactly what's going on.
Donald Trump gets sued every day. You know what I mean? So I just don't know. I don't know why they're making it so serious. Like it seems like, you know, like I say, celebrities and people of power and money, they get sued all the time. It's not something that is like, it's not the first time that this has ever happened.
Some people are saying if the federal government is doing the raid, they must have something on him. You think he did it? You think he did anything illegal?
I don't buy it. I don't think so. Yeah.
By the way, remember when Jaguar Wright said she heard stories about young men running away screaming from Jada and Will Smith's house, all because of their so-called mentorship?
Jada Pinkett was entangling. She was entangling with Chris Kelly from Kris Kross, because Kris Kross was in the room and he was like, Jada Pinkett is at the door, but don't leave. Take this weed. Chill. We like, damn, this motherfucker gave us an ounce of weed. We're gonna kick it right here. Then he came back in, he said, yeah, that was Jada Pinkett. I'm like, damn, this is Jada Pinkett at a young age.
So with all these disturbing stories about Kris Kross resurfacing, especially after Jermaine Dupri publicly defended Diddy, fans are starting to connect the dots. Could there be some truth to what Cat Williams said about Jermaine? And do you think Chris Kelly's tragic was really the result of trauma he faced as a young star in an industry full of predators? Leave your thoughts in the comments and don't miss this next video.